Yo, what's going on, y'all? This your man Marcus A. Brown once again. Today I'm going to read an excerpt from the book The Black Man's Guide Out of Poverty by Aaron Clarey. And just to give you a quick rundown of this book, it's basically a self-help book for, of course, black men that's trying to get out of poverty, but really any inner city youth that has experienced the challenges of living in poverty and that wants to establish a better standard of living for themselves. The book came out in March of 2015. Aaron Clarey and I have been promoting it all summer, and it's called The Black Man's Guide Out of Poverty, and it's written by a white guy. So as you can imagine, the book has had this bit of controversy with the whole Black Lives Matter movement going on this year. Now here it is, you got all these black folks that saying white people don't care, the system doesn't care, America doesn't care, and all these black people that want to say every white person is racist won't even consider reading the book. Why? Because he's white. Isn't that racist? Isn't that reverse racism? Anyway, the good news about this book, The Black Man's Guide Out of Poverty, and I guess the irony of it all, is that most of its supporters, the people who's buying this book the most, is not the black community, but it's more so the Latin American community and the conservative community and avid book readers, or maybe just the black folks that's already in tune with Aaron Clarey's books. So it's not really getting to the people who need it the most. And I told Aaron this, I told him, this is coming out of my mouth, not his, but black folks don't read. I mean, that's a horrible stereotype, but it's true. You can get it across to a couple of brothers with videos or audiobooks, but as far as getting them to actually read a book, not so much. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to make a couple of videos. I'm not going to read the book in its entirety, and I'm not going to read the book in order. I'm just going to touch on a few key chapters, and if you find it interesting, you want to read more, I'll provide a link in the description below. Y'all can purchase the book for yourselves and take it from there. Okay, so I have the hardback cover here with me, and I'm starting from page 19 at the first paragraph at the top. The question is, who stole the most important thing in your life? Who stole your family? Who took your women and turned them from Lena Horne to Whoopi Goldberg? Who took this one thing that would give your life meaning, purpose, and happiness, regardless of the disadvantages you may have been born into? The answer may shock you, because it is the people who've been claiming to help you this entire time. It's the state, aka the government. Your real enemy. At first, this may sound conspiratorial, if not just outright wrong. The government that has instituted affirmative action? The government that got us the Civil Rights Act? The state that pays for housing, food, education, and healthcare? This government is to blame for all our problems when it's been helping us this entire time? That's our enemy? That's our oppressor? Counterintuitive as it may sound, it's true. And the reason is in the law of unintended consequences. No matter how well intended, no matter how noble a law or a piece of legislation is meant to be, many times the good intentions of the honest, well-meaning statesmen are not enough to improve the lives of the people they're trying to help. Sadly, more often than not, these well-intended policies often prove damaging to the intended beneficiaries because either something was overlooked or somebody failed to anticipate the full consequences of these actions. And thus was the case in the Great Society from the 1960s. The Great Society was, in its simplest form, an attempt to eliminate poverty and discrepancies in standards of living between various races, sexes, and other groups of people. The intention was very noble and the solution was very simple. Give these disadvantaged groups money and other advantages so they can get a leg up and over time be on par with the rest of society. But while seemingly simple and patently noble, it was a highly flawed strategy because it was too easy to be taken advantage of. And as the law of unintended consequences predicted, it was. Politicians quickly realized that by promising people money, they could simply bribe people to vote for them. Also, unscrupulous people realized that if they were considered disadvantaged, they could be on the receiving end of this money. At first, it was the people consciously scamming the system and politicians willingly paying them for the added votes. But over the course of 3 decades and 3 generations, a culture and mentality was ingrained where the people were now living off of this system with no shame or even awareness of what they were doing. Matter of fact, so ingrained had this mentality become, most people were unconscious of the parasitic nature of their lifestyle. Money just came from the government, and that's how you lived your life. Naturally, there was resistance from the taxpayers footing the bill for this. So in order to keep selling this money for votes racket to the voting public, politicians cleverly tugged at their heartstrings by highlighting 2 desperate groups of people that were in dire need of government support: women and children, specifically single mothers and their children. And it is here where the government stole our birthright and destroyed our families. Previous to the Great Society, the basic unit of society was the family. And the nucleus of the family was the man. The man was the breadwinner. He was the head of the household, and he was the final arbiter of all major decisions. However, with all of these rights came great responsibilities. He had to make sure his family didn't starve. He had to work extra hours if money was short. He had to fix the car. He had to repair the house, keeping it in good order, ensuring that his family was safe from weather, thieves, and all other external threats. He had to discipline the children, train them, and instruct them. And if necessary, he was to die for them should any member of his family be threatened. In exchange for this, he was given not only the love, but the loyalty and the support of his wife, as well as the right to raise his children as he saw fit. But now, for the first time in U.S. history, the government was supplanting his role. A woman no longer needed a man, not because she had a job or was pursuing a career, but because the government would cut her a check. And not only would the state cut her a check, but it would cut her more checks the more kids she had. Soon it wasn't the husband paying for health insurance, rent, food, education, and gas, but the state through its ever-increasing numbers of social programs, all designed to help those poor single mothers and their children. The ultimate consequence of these well-intended programs was that it destroyed the basic unit of society, the family, by removing the man and replacing him with a government check. Sadly, this removal of men from society resulted in the aforementioned unintended consequences, which have done nothing short of wreak unimaginable destruction and devastation upon U.S. families, especially those in the black community. The biggest casualties are arguably children. No longer required to stay together for the betterment of their children, women can now simply divorce their husbands on grounds as flimsy as, "I'm not happy." And it's not so much that divorce law changed, allowing women to divorce more easily, as much as it is the knowledge that the government will financially provide for her and her children, making the man doubtably unnecessary. Let me read that one more time. And it's not so much that divorce law changed, allowing women to divorce more easily, as much as it is the knowledge that the government will financially provide for her and her children, making the man undoubtedly, I was waiting on y'all to say that part out loud, unnecessary. Even worse, the fact that 70% of black children are born out of wedlock suggests that black women do not even view the man as a potential father, husband, or head of household type figure. They simply view him as a sperm donor, leaving said roles to the government. Regardless of being a single mom on purpose or through divorce, the children are not raised in a stable, reliable, nuclear family. Another way children suffer is due to the lack of fathers present in the household. Here, a whole host of problems arise without the presence of a dad to raise his children. Since there is no ultimate authority capable of forcing discipline, behavior, and respect upon children, they grow up ill-weird, disrespectful, borderline feral, that means wild, like a wild animal and shit, increasing chances of crime and lowering chances of a good career. Children are also reared in a skewed manner, as 100% of the rearing is done by the mother or their predominantly female elementary school teachers. This not only leaves them ill-prepared when it comes to dealing with the male half of society, but it results in weak, pacified, whiny kids who are emotional, thin-skinned, and incapable of criticism or challenge. Just look at today's modern hipsters or social justice warriors. Finally, children just simply suffer emotionally and psychologically without having a dad around, no matter what various authorities or experts say. Cutting men out of the family also affected the finances of not just the family unit, but the country. Previous to the replacement, men were at least a control valve when it came to women's spending. The family had to live within their means, teaching everybody fiscal discipline. However, with this control valve gone and a metaphorical blank government check available, women are now allowed to spend money however they please. This has resulted not only in instances where single moms buy designer clothes but not food for their babies, but an enormous increase in taxation, which men disproportionately pay. Alas, men are still effectively footing the bill, but with no control or say on how said monies are spent. Akin to frivolous spending, government replacing men has now allowed women to become more promiscuous. Obviously, a real husband would adamantly refuse his wife to have sex with other men, but a government check is perfectly accepting of an open relationship. This allows women the option of having their cake and eating it too. Not only can they have children without the annoyance of being married and answering to a husband, but a government husband substitute will allow her to sleep with as many men as she wants. This does not so much mean women will nail every hot bad boy thug that comes along, though they will, as much as it makes settling down and marrying a less attractive option, as well as makes divorce a more attractive one. Worse than promiscuity, however, is just how much government programs have spoiled women, making them completely unmarriageable. If you were raised with a father, you were likely held to standards and expectations. Additionally, you were likely taught to consider others, respect others, and how to get along with others, especially men. And the reason your father taught you these things was not so that you will become altruistic, but so you could function in the real world. Purely selfish people cannot function in the real world. You need to consider others and adhere to certain levels of ethics, standards, and expectations. But a government check has no such standards. A government check has no such expectations. A government check is merely a non-sentient piece of paper incapable of rearing, disciplining, or imparting wisdom. Unfortunately, girls brought up by a government check and not a father lack the ability to sympathize, be selfless, consider others, etc. Boys as well, but we're obviously interested in women. They can also be quite demanding, claiming my man better do this and make that and bring home this, despite them never achieving anything of their own or having a right to demand such things. Ultimately, these traits are incompatible with marriage, as the only way marriage works is if you love the other person more than yourself. Sadly, as more and more people are reared without fathers, this selflessness declines and the pool of marriageable candidates, and thus our chance for genuine happiness, shrinks. Finally, and perhaps the most ironic cost replacing men with government has had on women, is one of unrealistic expectations. If you take the average man and what he can offer a woman and compare it to the government and what it can offer a woman, there just isn't any comparison. No man of any race can compete. The average man with his $45,000 a year job, 10-year-old GM car, and average looks cannot compete against the trillions of dollars President Obama, your state governor, and local county commissioner are willing to offer women. They're willing to pay for a girl's food, her health care, her education, her housing, her children, her transportation, everything. All one has to do is look at the political campaign Julia to see how much the government is willing to provide for women. I'll provide a link to that in the description below, by the way. Worse still, the government will hold her to absolutely no standards while you will. You will rightly insist she remain loyal, stay in shape, carry her weight, treat you kindly, help raise the children, etc., while politicians just want one thing and one thing only, her vote. There are certainly other costs society has suffered due to men being replaced by the government, but the larger point is clear. Men, particularly black men, have had the most important thing in their lives taken from them by the state. With no wife and no family to look forward to, a man has little purpose in life. This has relegated them to pursue an alternative life different from what their forefathers did and what they're genetically programmed to do. Of course, this alternative life certainly has its benefits: perpetual bachelorhood, minimal expenses, video games, friends, meaningless flings, easy job, etc. But sadly, it is ultimately a pointless one, resulting in a listless life void of true agency and purpose. And when you add to this all the other ailments and disadvantages black men endure, it is a problem that must be recognized, must be admitted, and above all else, diagnosed correctly so that it may be solved. Too many lives depend on it. Okay, so I'm going to stop reading right here, and I'll make a few more videos reading some different sections. And like I said, I'll provide a link to the book through Amazon if you're interested in purchasing it, as well as that political campaign Julia that was mentioned in the section that I just read. Once again, this is The Black Man's Guide Out of Poverty by Aaron Clarey. Very good book. I really enjoy reading it, and I hope you do too. Let me know what y'all think. I'll holler at y'all in the comment section. Peace.